Gravestones have the difficult task of summing up entire lives in just a few words. Here's a few interesting and creative examples. Ruth Graham. The wife of evangelist Billy Graham, Ruth Graham's tombstone reads, "End of construction. Thank you for your patience." This strange epitaph was taken from a road sign that Ruth saw years earlier. She thought it was the perfect metaphor for the Christian life, only complete when we go to God. Her grave also has the Mandarin character for righteousness. Ruth was born in China to missionary parents, and the same symbol is on her father's grave. Jules Verne. Jules Verne is considered one of the fathers of science fiction, and his numerous books predicted many modern technologies with frightening accuracy. He had a lifelong fascination with science and technology, but was brought up with a Catholic faith. Many have speculated on how he balanced those two beliefs. 2 years after Verne died, a sculpture was placed on his grave, showing Verne breaking free of death and pursuing immortality. Whether it's his Catholic upbringing or his love of science that propels him upwards, we'll never know. Colonel JW Van Goren and Lady JC Van Afferden. When Colonel Van Goren married Lady Van Afferden in the Dutch town of Roermond in 1842, it caused quite a stir. Van Afferden was a Catholic and part of the nobility, and Van Goren was a Protestant and a commoner. 38 years later, when Van Goren died, he was buried in the Protestant cemetery, which was separated from the Catholic cemetery by a brick wall. It was illegal for Catholics and Protestants to be buried together. 8 years later, when Van Afferden died, she bought the spot closest to her husband and joined the graves together with a pair of hands stretching over the wall. William Shakespeare. Widely considered the greatest writer in the English language, Shakespeare has a very unique headstone. It reads, "Good friend, for Jesus' sake forbear to dig the dust enclosed here. Blessed be the man who spares these stones, and cursed be he who moves my bones." It was common in 1616, when Shakespeare died, for people to dig up bodies for examination or other bizarre purposes. The curse doesn't seem to have been effective, as a recent radar examination of the grave revealed that the skull may have been stolen, perhaps for a very morbid performance of Hamlet. David Livingstone was a missionary, anti-slavery crusader, and one of the celebrity explorers of the 19th century. He spent most of his life evangelising to African tribes, while trying to find the legendary source of the Nile River. When he died from malaria and dysentery, he was buried in 2 places. His attendants, Chuma and Susi, took his heart out and buried it under a mapundu tree, saying that his heart belonged to Africa. The rest of his body was salted, wrapped in a sailcloth, and carried by foot and by ship over 1,000 miles back to England, where he was buried in Westminster Abbey. There are 2 inscriptions that encapsulate his 2 great passions. The Latin inscription is a quote from Lucan, "So great is my love of truth, that there is nothing I would rather know than the sources of the river which lay hid for so many centuries." The other quote shows his desire to share the gospel with the African people. "Other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. Them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice." What would you put on your gravestone? How do you want to be remembered?